All right, good morning, Yidney. We're on page 211. So, as I mentioned, it was on Friday. So, we labeled this series on YouTube, um, Chanukah's true villain.
Yeah.
So, what we're trying to find out is who's the real enemy here? And what's the real threat? And the code, the key to understanding who the real threat is understanding the way the Siddur describes our enemy. And the Siddur has 5 descriptions for our enemy, in describing how Hashem delivered our enemies into our hands. And the 5 descriptions are the mighty in the hands of the weak. Okay, so we're weak, they're mighty. The many in the hands of the few, they're many, we're few. Now those 2 descriptions are descriptions that indicate the grandeur of the miracle. They're mighty, they're many, we're weak, and we're few, and we won anyway. The next 3 don't describe anything miraculous, seemingly. And the next 3 are you deliver the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, the wanton sinners into the hands of those who are involved in your Torah. Yeah? Wonton sinners.
Yeah.
Wonton sinners, not the wonton soup. Yeah.
It's wonton. You should that.
Wonton with what?
It's wonton. Wonton.
Not wonton?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, wonton is a soup.
That's pronounced wonton?
Yes.
Like someone who wantonly behaves a certain way?
Yeah.
It's wantonly?
Yeah.
Man.
It's soft O.
It's soft O. Okay. Fix that.
Later.
No worries. Your father was good. Was a word guy.
Right.
Akapanim.
Yeah.
So this is our enemy. Sinners, wicked,
Right.
free sinners, freely sinning, wicked and impure. How does that increase the level of the miracle? Because the paragraph, the context is Al Nisim Balaporkam, we're thanking Hashem for the miracles, and these 3 descriptions don't represent any miracle. We suggested one explanation that this is the reason why they're weak. They're weak because they're involved in Torah, to which the Rebbe responds, to be weak, because of Torah study, you have to be exclusively involved in Torah study your entire life. And it's very difficult to imagine that the entire army of the Maccabees, all of whom were Talmud Chacham 24/7 for occupation. And it makes more sense that those who are occupied in your Torah is a more broad term to describe, just generally speaking, people who are involved in Torah, which is why it doesn't say Leimdei Torah, learners of Torah. It's Oiskei Torah Secha, those who are involved in Torah. So even someone who lives a Torah life, even if he's not learning 24/7, he's part of Oiskei Torah Secha. He's an Orthodox Jew. He's involved in performing Torah life. Right. So that can't be the reason there. Then they were suggested, well, maybe it's there because their enemy is not just occupation, but the enemy is persecution. And therefore, when we describe the victory, we have to describe our victory against persecution. Yeah? Okay, so that explains why we have to describe what you gave the impure into the hands of the pure, and the the wicked into the hands of the righteous, because you want to describe how the end of the battle is we overcame our persecution. But the truth is, 2 things. Number one, Rebbe still feels that the description should indicate an element of a miracle. The whole paragraph here is thank you Hashem for a miracle. So the description of our enemies should somehow indicate the miracle component. Right. That's number one. Number 2, I'm adding, I don't think Rebbe said this, but it seems to me that this is part of Rebbe's question, Rebbe's problem, is to describe that we overcame persecution. The rest of the Al Nisim does that. It says we won them. We went back to the temple. We rededicated. We lit candles and we celebrated. So that itself is a description that we have religious freedom now again. Describing our enemies as impure, free sinners, and wicked doesn't indicate any sort of reestablishment of religious behavior, and doesn't add to the miracle either. Right. So why? So we started to say Friday that the real enemy is not occupation, not persecution, but assimilation. And the description of our enemies as impure, as wicked, and as free sinners is not a description of the Greeks. It's a description of the Misyavnim, those who have assimilated into the Greek culture, either by force, but more importantly, because the guys who are by force are anusim. They're not at fault, they're anusim. But those who free sinners, wantonly adopted Greek lifestyle and joined their ranks. And that's the real enemy that we're dealing with here. Okay, so how does that increase the miracle? This is where we are right now. How does the fact that there are Jews assimilated into Greek, or the majority of Jews assimilated into the Greek army, into our enemy, how does that increase the level of miracle? This is where we're left off right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see.
The choice.
On page 211. Middle paragraph,
On the right
Start.
which says V'ulai yesh lemar. V'ulai yud lamed.
Right. Yeah.
So v'ulai yesh lemar, perhaps we can suggest, says the Rebbe, shekavana b'shloishis inyanim hanal, that the intention in these three descriptions, to maybe the impure in the hands of the pure, the shayim b'yat tzaddikim, the wicked in the hands of the righteous, zaydim, those who are free sinners, in the hands of those who are involved in Torah. The intention here is l'misyavnim b'nei Yisrael, not to the Greeks, not to their persecution, but to the misyavnim, those who have Greekified, those who have assimilated, willingly assimilated into Greek culture.
The biggest,
Those are the big enemies.
those that we're saying, like, that's, we've made our answer, that's the point we're at.
This is the point we're at. And we're going to explain this in a minute how that works. Highness means to say, in addition to the fact that the Chashmonaim overpowered the mighty Greek army, which is in such a manner that it's so great, that you delivered the hands, you God delivered the hands of the mighty to the hands of the weak, the many in the hands of the few. That's a description of the Greeks. In addition to that, that it was delivered into their hands, Gam as well, to made the impure, the wicked, and the sinners, Bnei Yisrael of the Jewish people. So the first two, there's 5 descriptions of our enemies. Mighty, many, that's Greeks. Impure, wicked, sinners, that's the Jewish people.
Those are the.
Misyavnim. Now let's put so why didn't it say so? Why didn't it divide it and say so? These are the Greeks and these are the Jews. Why is this? They're not clear about that. So look at footnote 17. Ella, but out of respect for the Jewish people, the Siddur is not explicit in stating Shekoyel b'nei Yisrael. We're talking about the Jewish people. Imagine every year, all Jews around the world open up the Siddur and they read, Hashem, you delivered the Greeks into our hand, and you delivered all these assimilated Jews. Every year for eternity, every Jew has to make mention in this prayer that there was a bunch of Jews who assimilated.
We all do that.
So disrespectful. There's so many layers to why it's disrespectful. First of all, if you're trying to be Mekar another Jew, you imagine a Chabad house. You're trying to be Mekar another Jew, you're trying to bring another Jew in. And you invite him in for a Hanukkah service. And he opens his Siddur, he reads it in English. And he starts reading that we're celebrating the fact that religious Jews won non-religious Jews.
He walks out.
It's not nice. One level why it's not nice. Another level why it's not nice is, these people have passed away thousands of years ago. Every year they have to be enshrined for eternity that they made such a mistake. It's just not nice. So the Siddur hints to it by calling them impure, wicked, and thing where we're not sure what we're talking about. By dropping it in there and you think about it a little bit, you understand we're not talking about the Greeks only. We're talking about Jews who assimilated. Okay, now how does this increase the miracle? How does the fact that there are Jews who joined, or the majority of Jews joined the Greek ranks, how does that increase the level of miracle? Right? The fact that they're mighty, that increases the level of miracle. That the weak won the mighty. That the few won the mighty, this increased miracle. How does pure winning the impure and the righteous winning the wicked, etc., increase the miracle? So let's see. And this adds another nuance to what our enemy is. Not just assimilation, even more than that. Back to the main text. Last paragraph on the right-hand side of 211. This increases the level of the miracle. On 2 accounts. Number one, the literal battle. This increases the level of miracle of the literal battle, meaning the literal battle, our chances of winning decreased by the fact that there was Jews assimilated. Number one. How so?
How does that work?
So let's see. And is understood quite clearly, says the Rabbi. The great miracle, when you have Jewish people standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder with Greeks, and nevertheless, nonetheless, the minority of Jewish people win them. So literally, their numbers are actually greater. Their morale is greater. You would think. We're standing here not just a minority against an oppressive army, but with, it's like
Assimilated Jews, they did
They're fighting, they
They
were fighting
fight?
against Jews.
They
as well.
fought with, yes, they fought with the Greeks,
Well, with the
with the Greeks.
They were not with us.
No, they weren't neutral either. They were shoulder to shoulder with the Greeks.
Ah,
This happened,
That's how it weakened the.
that's how weak is the position of the Jewish people.
and
Well, same
increases
thing
the
happened
miracle.
with the
Literally.
Holocaust,
And
right?
increases
So
the
the Holocaust was one
miracle.
level where it happened, sorry,
Increases the miracle aspect.
and increases the miracle that way, yes. So first of all, bigger numbers and also morale.
Yeah,
It makes
You're
morale
standing in
higher.
battle and you're looking at the guy across the thing and he's your neighbor,
brother.
it's your cousin, it's your brother. That's a very scary, it's a very scary thing. So first of all, like you're right, that happened in the Holocaust, the Kapos things.
The cops, right?
Now, the Kapos, yeah.
Okay.
When it came to the Holocaust, it was a little bit more,
They
they were a
thought
little
they
bit more
were doing
forced.
nothing.
It's a more complex, component of history.
Acting under
With-
duress.
Acting under duress, we'll kill you and your family if you don't go and beat up a Jew next door to you. That's
Are you
kind of
allowed to do
happening.
that?
Sorry,
Are you allowed to do that?
it's hard for history to judge. What is it? Lo pashut.
Okay.
But
What guy this was?
there are other places where it happened more clearly. In communism. So communism had two major threats. Number one was the physical brute, throwing people in jail and killing people. Another thing was, before communism became brutal, it was very alluring. And in mass, wholesale, Jews bought into the ideology of communism before it even came to power. And then when they came to power, they felt that these pesky Orthodox Jews are ruining their communist utopia. And they were the ones who persecuted the Chassidim the most, some of whom themselves came from Hasidic families. The people who came to arrest the previous Rebbe themselves came from Hasidic families. They came to arrest the previous Rebbe. Right? Imagine the morale of a Chassid being arrested, and it's a guy who's arresting him is someone who he forbade with his father. He went to yeshiva with his father or grandfather. The level of threat here gets increased. And that's what's happening here with the Jews. Well, many Jews unfortunately align themselves with the Greeks. That's number one.
The destruction of any great empire can only come from within.
That's right. So you would think this would completely crush the Jewish people. We have the majority of Jewish people siding with the others, with the Greeks. Exactly. You crush a people much more, not from the outside, but from the inside. And here they're getting from the inside because they have all these Jews joining the ranks. That's number one. Now here's the second component. And this is another level of the miracle. The fact that there was Jews joining the ranks made the probability of them winning less, not just because of the morale and the numbers, but because of the spiritual truth of the world. Namely, the fact that God did this miracle, which is what the point of this whole paragraph is, to highlight that it wasn't a natural victory, but the whole point of this paragraph is to highlight that this victory was a miracle that God performed. Which we say in our Alanisim, top left, 211. You and your great mercy, you stood by us in a time of our distress. You waged our battles, etc., etc. You avenged our vengeance, etc. Masarta, you delivered, etc., etc. So how does the fact that there's a bunch of Jews joining the Greeks decrease the probability that God would do a miracle? No, think.
You're further away from God.
You're going further away from God.
Hashem would
Are you deserving of a miracle?
No, you're pushing yourself
No.
away.
In fact, we have many indications where Hashem actually judges. There are times when Hashem judges on an individual level, and there are times when Hashem judges on a national level. And if God's judging on a national level, a miracle
Wouldn't have happened.
wouldn't have happened.
It's like the second temple, or the first for that matter. The Jews were in disharmony. Hashem,
And the second temple, yeah.
this shouldn't be any different in a sense. Same
Exactly. Even though many Jewish people, maybe even the majority, were not worthy of this miracle. Hashem took into consideration the minority. So Hashem took into consideration the minority who were pure, righteous, and involved in Torah and did them the miracle.
Same thing as in Egypt. 80%
Same thing in Egypt.
were assimilated. Hashem took
Didn't want
us out.
Oh,
It's
so what-
also parallels.
so what's the difference between here and Egypt? I'm actually thinking about that. What's the difference? In Egypt, what happened to the 80%?
He died
They died.
during the darkness.
What happened to the Misnavim here? So anybody who was similar, what
They
happened to
died
them?
also, but in
So the
a
country was,
more-
one second, when the country was rebuilt, it was rebuilt only with that minority of Jews?
No,
No,
every Jew,
everybody.
every individual.
Even post-war, we have no, I don't see a reason to believe that all the people who joined the Greek ranks left Israel, and Israel is being rebuilt by a tiny minority of the Jews.
No,
Why not?
They probably stuck around, and they said, you know what, we're putting our arm down, you're right. Maybe. It's a huge chunk of history that would be missing to the story.
Still a lot of Jews
should be
are
described
unaccounted
something.
for, and that's
Sorry?
why you guys are fine.
Certainly many Jews would have died.
There's no historian that has found something out about
There's the book of Maccabees, you can read it there. I don't know what it says
What is
there.
the book of Maccabees? Is that like a Jewish book or it's a secular?
Good question.
Good question.
Josephus.
Josephus is mostly a copy of the book of Maccabees.
Like I'd love
No,
to.
not necessarily trade. Josephus,
He's a traitor.
he's a traitor, Josephus, but not necessarily are his books to be discounted.
Right.
But you have to take with a grain of salt. To a large degree, he's copying the book of Maccabees because he lives 200 years after the story of Hanukkah. Anyway, my point is I don't know that we have to imagine. I imagine that it splits into three. You have some Jews who joined the Greek ranks who died in battle, obviously, right? Then you have some Jews who probably, when the Greeks retreated with them. And then you have some Jews who were like, oh my gosh, it's just a huge mistake, put their arm down and stayed. And what happened? They were hung to death by the Egyptians, by the Hashmonaim.
No.
God forbid. I don't think that happened. We would have known such a thing. So I imagine then that the miracle, that the ones who benefited from the miracle were not just the Hashmonaim, were also the Jews who are on the other side. Or at least some of them certainly
We're the
did.
impure, we're the weak, we're the.
I'm sure some of them did. Some of them stayed.
So is that why they're there?
Sorry.
Is that why it's mentioned like that?
Oh, so I'm saying
How
here
would they
that
get
this is a
along?
great.
How would they get along with their brethren who fought?
So why did they imagine that the Hashmonaim wanted them dead? The Hashmonaim would rather them join. They understand the challenges. They live through it. They understand the challenges of the allure. Let's think of it this way. Imagine. Let's go back to the communist Russia. Yeah, that example. Guy comes and says, "Yeah, I bought into this whole communism thing. I see it's torturing Jewish people. It's a terrible idea. I didn't think this was going to happen. I want to join the Chassidim." They might be very suspicious of him because he might be ratting them out to the communists, but I don't think they would reject him on principle. Reject him on principle, especially if the communist government fell.
It's like Meet the Giants series when those who bowed down to the.
Oh, we had that.
They
Then.
had to come
That's
back.
right. Many of the people want to throw them out because, hey, look, they traded. And Rashi Rambam said, no, bring them in. And many others, correct? We had that before. Where Jews were.
They didn't welcome them back. So
the people didn't. The sages stood up and said, no, welcome them back in. Rambam put his foot down and said, let the Jews who converted come back in. So did Rashi. And others, we spoke about those too.
yeah.
But we have others who also did. And they were given aliyahs and welcomed back in and given marriages and so on.
Maybe under the same reasoning.
Same reasoning. We rejected every Jew who walked away, we'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I imagine, so here's the great miracle. So there's a big chiddush here. The great miracle here is not that there's one thing Hashem did the miracle, which is Hashem did a miracle that made the weaker and the fewer demoralized, the lost half the people, make them win. That's one miracle. There's another layer of the miracle. The fact that Hashem did a miracle is itself a miracle.
Right.
The fact that Hashem made a decision to, because just like the physical world has a nature, and the nature of the physical world is that the mighty win, and that the many win.
I thought
There's
miracles were in.
There's a spiritual nature also of
Yeah,
when
but-
miracles are supposed to happen and when miracles are not supposed to happen.
Oh, okay.
There's a spiritual nature.
And
There's a spiritual system. And the spiritual system is you behave, you get, you don't behave, you don't get. So there's a spiritual system also. And the fact that Hashem broke the spiritual system and gave them a miracle, that itself is a miracle. The fact that Hashem gave them a physical miracle is a spiritual miracle because they shouldn't have got it, considering the majority of Jews sold out. So it's a Gavaldic thing. So if we want to talk about who the villain is, we went from occupation to persecution to assimilation to the spiritual nature of the world. That itself is the villain here that's holding back the miracle from happening because, hey, you don't spiritually deserve. Too bad, miracle anyway. Okay, we'll continue with the link. I want to finish more Hanukkah over. How many more days we have left?
Two more mornings. Yeah,
Tuesday,
two more
Wednesday.
mornings. That's it.
Huh?
We have more.
Today is the sixth morning of
Six.
Hanukkah. That
7?
means we have 7, 8. 2 more days.
Okay, we have to be on time tomorrow. I'll move a little quicker here tomorrow.
Okay.
So I want to finish this before Hanukkah's over. Okay, wonderful day.
Okay.